The air up here smells of dry thyme and dust and wood smoke, for the cooking fires are being lit all across the town. Somewhere, a goat complains. A boy is bringing sheep in along a walled track. The heat of the day is lifting off the land, and a small wind comes down from the mountains. Hymettus to the east, where the wild bees make the famous honey, and Pentelicus to the north, whose pale marble built the very temple on the hill. Breathe that mountain air. Let it fill you slowly, and let it out slower still. There is no clatter of machines in this world, no engine anywhere on the whole earth. The loudest thing tonight will be a voice, or a dog, or the wind. It is very quiet. It is meant to be. Come down now, gently, through the gate and into the streets, while there is still a little light to walk by. The lanes are narrow, some barely wide enough for a laden donkey, and they twist without reason so that a stranger would soon be lost. But we are not strangers tonight, and we are in no hurry. The walls to either side are blank and plain, mud brick over stone footings, washed pale. The Athenians kept their beauty inside, not out. A grand house and a humble one look much the same from the lane. Only the door tells you anything, and even that only a little. There are no house numbers, no signs. People simply knew. The day's work is folding up. A cobbler is closing his little shop front, an open room giving straight onto the street. A woman calls a child in from a doorway. The last porters go by with empty baskets, heading home. And drifting on the air is the smell of the evening meal beginning. Barley toasting, olive oil warming in a shallow pan, the sharp green scent of herbs. Nobody is rushing. The dark is coming, and when the dark comes, in a world lit only by small flames, the sensible thing is simply to be home. Let us pass through the heart of it, the agora, the great open square, the marketplace and meeting place all in one, now that the crowds have gone. By day, this was the loudest place in Greece. Farmers with figs and cheese, fishmongers, potters, money changers, and everywhere men standing about and arguing, which was the true Athenian art. It was here, among the stalls, that Socrates liked to stop passers-by and ask his gentle, maddening questions. What is justice? What is courage? What do you really mean? And it is from those conversations, written down later by his student Plato, that we know so much of how these people thought. But now the agora is nearly empty. The awnings are furled. A stray dog noses among the swept-up leavings. The long covered walkways, the stoas, stand in blue shadow, their painted walls dim. Here is something worth knowing, so gently that you may let it slip away at once. The word we still use, politics, is simply their word, from polis, the city. Democracy is theirs too. Demos, the people, and kratos, power, the power of the people. It was here, or on the hill nearby, that ordinary citizens gathered in their thousands to vote, with a show of hands, on the affairs of the city. No kings, no ministers, the men themselves deciding. It was far from perfect. Women could not vote, and much of the labor was done by the enslaved, which we should not pretty over. But the idea was born here, in this modest square, and it never quite died. When you cast a vote, you are using a machine first switched on in this dust. Now the marketplace is letting its breath out. Come away from it, toward the ordinary houses, where the real evening is happening. Let us stop at one house among the thousands, a modest one, the home of a potter and his family, no one you have heard of, which is rather the point. From the lane, there is only a wooden door, weathered gray. But step through it, and the house turns its face inward, around a small open courtyard beneath the sky. This is the secret of the Greek house. It looks in, not out. The courtyard is the heart of it, and around it the small rooms open, a place to store the great jars of oil and grain, a room for the loom, a room or two for sleeping. The floor is beaten earth in the poorer parts, and there is not much furniture, for these were people who owned little and needed less. A few stools, a chest, a low table that can be carried in and out. Everything simple, everything quiet. A little clay hearth glows in the courtyard, or just off it, and this warm point of fire is the true center of the home. The Greeks had a goddess for exactly this, Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, the gentlest of all the great gods, who asked for no temples and no drama, only the small, steady flame that a household keeps alive. Every meal began with a little offering to her, tossed into the fire. There is a fine, calm thought in that the holiest thing in the house was not far away on the great rock, but here, low and warm, where the family gathered. Sit near it a while. Feel the heat on your face and hands. Let it soften you. As the last daylight leaves the courtyard, the lamps are lit. And here is a thing worth noticing, for it changes everything about the night. These are little lamps of clay, no bigger than the palm of a hand, each holding a small pool of olive oil with a twist of flax or linen for a wick. The flame is small, smaller than a candle, a soft gold bead of light, and it does not push the darkness very far. A whole house might be lit by only 2 or 3. So the Greek evening was not bright the way our evenings are bright. It was a world of warm pools of light with deep shadow between, and faces leaning close to see one another, and the smell, very faintly, of burning oil. Think of that. When these people wanted to read, or talk, or simply sit, they gathered around one small flame, close together, in the dark. There was no other way, and perhaps they were the richer for it. And here is a gentle correction for a thing you may have half believed. We picture the ancient Greeks in a world of dazzling white marble under a hard blue sky. Museums have taught us that. But their nights were long and deeply dark, ruled by these tiny flames, and their days ended early. When the light failed, so did the day's business. They were not, most of them, night people. They rose with the sun and slept not long after it set. As, tonight, will you. Now the family gathers for the evening meal, the deepnon, the main meal of the day, taken as the light goes. Do not imagine a feast. For most Athenians, most nights, the food was plain and good. Barley, made into a kind of porridge or flat cake, for bread of wheat was dearer. Olives and olive oil. Cheese from the goats. Figs, which they loved and ate by the handful. Onions, beans, a little fish if they lived near the sea, which they did. Meat was rare. Mostly it came only when an animal had been sacrificed to the gods, and then the whole neighborhood shared it. So a plate of fish and figs and barley, with a cup of wine mixed with water, was a good supper, and the family ate it sitting on stools around the low table, by lamplight, without much ceremony. The wine is worth a word. The Greeks almost never drank it neat. To do so was thought the mark of a barbarian or a fool. They mixed it with water, often 2 or 3 parts water to 1 of wine, in a great bowl called the crater, and drank it weak and slow through the long evening. Even their pleasures were measured. And when the food is cleared and the children grow heavy-eyed, the day has very nearly done its work. Feel how your own evening is folding down in just the same way. The meal behind you, the light low, the body asking, quietly, to rest. In the finer houses, on some nights, the meal gives way to something more. The symposium, the drinking together, from which we take our own word, symposium. Let us only glimpse it from the courtyard, softly, and not go in. In a lamp-lit room, the men recline on couches along the walls, propped on one elbow in the old fashion, and the mixing bowl of watered wine stands in the middle. But it is not, at its best, a rowdy thing. They take turns to speak, to recite old poetry, to sing, to pose riddles, to argue gently about love and courage and the good life. A boy might play the double pipe, the aulus, low and reedy. It is from an evening exactly like this one that Plato drew his most beautiful book, the Symposium, where friends around the wine take turns to say what love truly is, until the small hours, until one by one they fall asleep where they lie. That is the sound to carry down into sleep. Not argument, but the quiet music of voices in a warm room, rising and falling, going nowhere in particular, while the lamp burns low and the wine grows weak. And no one much minds if you drift away in the middle of it. They will not miss you. They are half asleep themselves. Back in the modest house, before rest, there is one last small thing the family does. They pause at the household shrine. In the courtyard or by the door stands a little marker, sometimes just a stone, sometimes a small carved pillar with a bearded face called a herm. And here the family keeps its gods close. There is a pinch of incense, perhaps, or a few drops of wine poured out, a quiet word to Hestia of the hearth, and to Zeus, who guards the courtyard, and to the spirits of the ancestors. The Greeks did not think of religion as something set apart, kept for one day. It was woven through the whole of ordinary life, a word at the door, a splash of wine, a habit older than memory. There is nothing frightening in it tonight. It is only a small pause, a settling, a way of saying the day is done and we are safe and we may sleep. And how do they know it is time? Not by any clock, for there is nothing here that ticks. They tell the time by the sky and by the light and by the little water clock in the courts of law that let a speaker talk only so long. By night they read the hour from the stars, which wheel overhead as faithfully as any machine. Bedtime is not a number. It is simply the dark and the tiredness and the small flame guttering. All the machinery of the hurried world is still thousands of years from being built. Here, you sleep when you are sleepy. Let yourself be exactly that sleepy now. Now the lamps are being put out, one by one, and the family lies down to sleep. The beds are simple, a wooden frame, cords or leather straps stretched across it, a stuffed mattress and woolen blankets, for the nights can be cool even in that warm land. In the poorer houses, people slept on the floor on a mat or up on the flat roof in the heat of summer to catch the mountain air. There were no bedrooms as we mean them, private and shut away. The family slept close, in a room or two, the children near the parents, everyone breathing the same dark. The last small lamp is pinched out. The smell of it lingers a moment. And then there is only the warm dark and the sound of the household breathing, and far off a dog and the wind coming down off Hymettus. Let your own breathing slow to match theirs. But let us step out just once more, very softly, into the courtyard. For the greatest thing in the Athenian night is the sky. Look up. Without a single electric light anywhere in the world, the stars over Athens are beyond anything most of us have ever seen. Thick, layered, spilled across the whole black bowl of the sky, and the pale river of the Milky Way flung clear across the middle of it. The Greeks watched these lights with great care and gave them the names we still use. That bright band overhead they called Galaxias, the Milky Way, from their word for milk, and from that same word we take our own galaxy. The patterns among the stars they read as figures and stories, the great bear turning slow around the pole, never setting, the hunter Orion with his belt of 3 bright stars climbing the winter sky, the little cluster of the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, whose rising and setting told the farmer when to plow and when to sail. Here is a wonder to fall asleep on. Nearly every constellation you can name tonight was named by people like the ones sleeping in this house. Greek shepherds and sailors and poets, looking up from courtyards just like this one 2,500 years ago. When you find Orion, or the bear, or the sisters, you are seeing the sky through their eyes. The names have outlasted the temples. They have outlasted the language. They are still up there, unchanged, turning over you now. And the Greeks had a gentle story for the night itself, older than all the rest, which we may end on. In the beginning, they said, before the earth and the sea and the shining sky, there was only chaos, a great yawning dark. And out of that dark came Nyx, the goddess Night, one of the first beings of all, so old and so mighty that even Zeus, king of the gods, would not do anything to displease her. She was not a thing to fear. She was the mother of gentle powers, of sleep, whom they called Hypnos, and of dreams, and of soft-handed rest. Each evening, they imagined, Nyx drew her dark veil across the world from east to west, and under it all things laid down their labors. She was the oldest kindness there is, the dark that lets you stop. So night is not something that falls on you tonight. It is something very old and very kind that gathers you in. The same night the Athenians lay down beneath, the same stars, the same soft dark, unbroken across all the long years between them and you. There is a great comfort in that so little of what matters has changed, that a tired person in a small house by a small flame under those same stars, wanting only to rest, that is a thread that runs unbroken from that quiet town straight to your own pillow. They are all asleep now, the potter and his family, the philosophers in their lamplit rooms, the whole small city under its blanket of stars, asleep as you, perhaps, are sleeping now. The lamps are out. The hearth is a soft red glow. Nyx has drawn her veil, and Hypnos moves gently from house to house. So let go of the last of it. There is nothing to hold, nothing to carry, nothing to remember. Let the old streets fade. Let the stars turn without you. Let the warm dark have you completely. Sleep well, and when you are ready to travel again, Nox Historia will be waiting. Good night. Good evening, and welcome to Nox Historia. Tonight, we travel to the world of the Vikings. Wherever you are, and however your day has been, you can set it all down now. There is nothing left to do tonight. Nothing to fix, nothing to finish. Just let yourself grow heavy. Let your breathing slow. And come with me, gently, in no hurry at all, to a small village by a northern sea, more than 1,000 years ago. We are not going to the Vikings of the raids and the longships and the battles, but to the quiet Vikings, the evening Vikings, the farmers and the fishers and the families, who made up almost all of them, settling down for a long winter night in the warm dark of their homes, while the snow falls softly outside. This is the age we now call the Viking Age. The years, roughly, from the 700s to the year 1066. And here is something most people never learn. To almost everyone alive in this northern world, the word Viking was not a person you were, but a thing you did. To go Viking meant to sail away on a voyage for a single season, to trade or to raid, and then to come home again. Most of the people of the north never went at all. They stayed here, on small farms like this one, and fished these cold gray waters, and raised their children, and lived their whole quiet lives by the fire. And it is their world, the real, ordinary, everyday world of the North, that we have come to visit tonight. You do not need to remember any of this. You do not need to follow closely or picture every detail. Just let the words drift past you, like snow falling past a window in the firelight. And if, somewhere along the way, you happen to fall asleep, good. That is exactly what this is for. It is a winter evening, far in the north. The short day is already ending, the pale sun slipping down behind the dark shoulders of the mountains, and a deep blue dusk is gathering over the land. Here, in winter, the nights are very long, and the people have learned, over many generations, not to fight the darkness, but to make a warm and comfortable peace with it. To gather in, to light the fire, to wait in good company for the slow return of the light. The village is small, just a handful of houses scattered along the shore of a great still fjord where the dark water lies between steep, snow-covered mountains. Smoke rises straight up from the rooftops into the windless air. The houses are long and low, built of timber and stone and turf, with grass growing on their curved roofs, so that in summer they seem to grow from the earth itself, and in winter they wear a soft, deep blanket of snow. Down at the water's edge, the boats are drawn up on the shingle for the night, leaning gently on their sides, their work done until morning. The great fjord is perfectly calm, a sheet of dark glass holding the last gray light of the sky. Now and then, a small wave folds over on the stones with a soft hush and draws back, and all is still again. Out across the water, the far shore is fading into the blue dark, and the first faint star is showing above the mountains. All along the shore stand the things of the sea, for the cold fjord and the ocean beyond it give this village much of its life. Tall wooden racks rise against the dusk, hung with split fish, cod, drying slowly in the cold, clean air into hard stockfish that will keep all through the winter and longer. Nets are spread to dry, stiffening in the frost. A few wooden barrels stand ready, and coils of rope, and the long oars leaning where they were left. The men who went out at first light into the gray cold of the morning sea are long since home now, their boats hauled up, their catch brought in. The sea has given what it will give today, and asks nothing more of anyone tonight. It is easy, looking at these small wooden boats resting on the snow, to forget how very far their light could travel. For the ships of the north were the finest in all the world in their day, light and strong, and supple enough to bend with the great waves of the open ocean rather than break against them. In ships not so very different from these, the people of this age sailed west across the empty sea to settle Iceland, and then green-shored Greenland, and at last reached the shores of North America itself, some 500 years before Columbus would even be born. They carried no compass, for there was none. They steered instead by the sun and the stars and the color of the water and the flight of birds toward distant land, and a deep, patient knowledge of the sea, handed down from father to child. But tonight, all of that is far away. Tonight, these boats are home and resting and going nowhere at all. If your eyes have already begun to close, let them. You can stop listening whenever you like. I will keep walking, slowly, up from the shore toward the warm lights of the houses, and you can come with me as far as you wish to go. Let us walk up the path from the water, through the soft, new snow, toward the largest of the houses. The cold air is sharp and clean and smells of wood smoke in the sea. Our feet make a gentle crunch on the snow, and our breath clouds before us in the dusk. Ahead, low golden light spills from the small windows and from the gaps around the door, warm against the deep blue of the evening. And from within, faintly, comes the sound of voices and the crackle of a great fire. We pass a smaller building on the way, set a little apart from the houses, and from it comes a faint warm glow and the last soft ring of a hammer. It is the smithy, the forge, where the village smith works his iron. By day, this is the loudest, brightest place in the village, ringing with the blows of the hammer, the roar of the bellows, the hiss of hot metal plunged into water. The smith is a man of great importance here, for he makes everything the village depends on. The knives and the axes, the nails for the boats, the cooking pots, the tools for the farm. But the day's work is nearly done. The smith sets down his hammer and rests the last of his iron aside to cool. He rakes the glowing charcoal of his forge down low, banking it carefully, the deep orange light fading to a soft red glow under the ash. He wipes his blackened hands and stands a moment in the warmth of the dying fire, easing his tired shoulders, looking out at the snow falling through the open door. Then he pulls the door to, and the warm glow narrows and is gone, and the village is one lamp quieter. This is the Longhouse, the heart of a Viking home. From the outside, it is a long, low hall, perhaps 30 paces from end to end, its timber walls packed with turf to hold out the cold, its roof a great curved back of grass and snow. Let us push open the heavy wooden door and step inside, out of the cold and the dark, into the warm. And what a warm it is. Down the whole length of the hall runs a long hearth set into the earthen floor, and along it several fires are burning, low and red and steady. The light moves and flickers on the timber walls, on the carved posts, on the faces of the family gathered near the warmth. The air is thick and cozy with wood smoke, which drifts slowly up and out through a small opening in the roof. There is the smell of the fire, and of a stew simmering in an iron pot, and of wool, and of the animals at the far end of the hall. It is dim and golden and close and safe. There are no separate rooms here. The whole life of the household happens in this one long space. Along both walls run low raised platforms of packed earth and timber, covered with furs and woven cloths. By day, these are benches where people sit and work. By night, they are beds where the whole family sleeps, wrapped in furs and woolen blankets, close to the warmth of the banked fires. To sleep here, in the deep of winter, is to lie in the firelight, with your family breathing all around you, and the snow falling silently on the roof above. There is no hurry. We have all night. The evening meal is being shared around the fire. Over the central hearth hangs a great iron cauldron on a chain, and in it a stew has been slowly simmering all afternoon. Barley and onions and pieces of dried fish or mutton, rich and warm and filling for a cold night. The mother of the house ladles it into simple wooden bowls and passes them around, and the family eats with horn spoons, sitting close along the benches in the firelight. There is flat barley bread baked on a stone by the fire. There is butter and cheese, and perhaps a little ale poured from a jug into wooden cups. No one hurries. There is nowhere to go out there in the snow and the dark. There is only this, the warm bowl in the hands, the fire, the low murmur of family talk, the long winter night settling comfortably around them all. When the bowls are empty, they are set aside, and people sit back, warm and full and content, and the talk grows slower and softer. Near the door, an old man sits working a piece of wood by the firelight. He is carving, slowly, patiently, a simple spoon, turning it in his weathered hands, taking off a curl of pale wood with each careful stroke of his knife. He has made 100 such things in his life, 1,000. His hands know the work so well that he need not even watch them, and his eyes have gone soft and far away, gazing into the embers. Beside him, the curls of wood gather on the floor, and the firelight catches the blade as it moves, slow, and slow, and slow. Across the hearth, a woman sits at her weaving. The loom stands upright against the wall, a tall wooden frame, and the threads of wool hang down it, weighted at the bottom with smooth, round stones. All through the dark winter, the women of the north weave. The cloth for the family's clothes, the sails for the ships, the very fabric that holds this whole world together. And consider this as her hands move steadily in the firelight. A single great sail for a single ship might take the wool of hundreds of sheep and more than a year of a woman's patient spinning and weaving to complete. Cloth was so precious in the north and such labor that a ship's woolen sail could be worth as much as the whole ship beneath it. So the women at their looms, working quietly through every long winter like this one, were in truth weaving the very power of their people. For without the sail, those famous ships would never have gone anywhere at all. Her hands moved steadily, passing the weft across, drawing it tight, passing it back. It is one of the oldest and most soothing of all human sounds, the soft, rhythmic clack of the loom weights knocking gently together, back and forth and back. A sound to fall asleep to, here in the warm. The children are gathered close to the fire, drowsy now, leaning against the warm bodies of the grown-ups, their eyes growing heavy in the flickering light. A baby sleeps in a wooden cradle, rocked now and then by a foot without a thought. And a great shaggy hound lies stretched full length before the embers, twitching gently in some warm dog dream, as close to the fire as he can get. At the far end of the long hall, beyond a low wooden partition, the animals are settled for the night. For in this hard country, the most precious beasts come indoors through the worst of the winter. A few cattle, some sheep, the goats, sharing the shelter of the longhouse and adding their own warmth to it. We can hear them softly in the dark, the gentle shift of a hoof on the packed floor, the slow, contented breathing of a cow, the rustle of straw. There is something very old and very peaceful in it, people and animals, together, waiting out the long, cold night beneath one snow-covered roof. Let us sit a while by the fire, for the best part of the evening is beginning. An old woman, the grandmother of the house, sets aside her work, and the children turn toward her, for they know what is coming. She is going to tell a story. In this world, where almost no one reads or writes, the stories are kept alive only in the telling, passed down by the fireside, night after night, winter after winter, from the old to the young. They do have a kind of writing, it is true. Runes, sharp, angular letters cut into wood and stone, well suited to a name or a memorial, or a few words carved over a doorway. But the great tales were far too long for that. They lived only in memory and in the voice. And so, for hundreds of years, these stories were never written down at all. Almost everything we know today of the old Norse gods, we owe to a handful of Icelanders who, long after this night, at last set the old tales onto parchment. Most of all, a man named Snorri Sturluson, who gathered the myths into a book some 800 years ago. Without him, and without all the grandmothers, by all the fires, who kept the tales alive in the telling just long enough to reach him, the very story this old woman is murmuring tonight might have been lost from the world forever. And so she begins, in a low and easy voice, a tale she heard from her own grandmother long ago. A tale of gods and giants, of the great world tree whose branches hold up the sky, of cunning Loki and mighty Thor, of far Valhalla and the long halls of the gods. And though it may seem these gods are long forgotten now, you greet them yourself, even today, every single week. For the chief of the gods, one-eyed Odin, Woden in the older tongue, gives his name to Wednesday. Thor the Thunderer gives his to Thursday, and the goddess Frigg gives hers to Friday. The old gods of the North have been sleeping quietly inside the ordinary names of our days all this time, and most of us pass them by every week of our lives without ever once noticing they are there. The children listen, wide-eyed at first, and then more and more slowly, their blinks growing longer, as the old voice rises and falls, gentle as the sea on the stones, and the fire crackles, and the snow falls, and one by one, their heads grow heavy and begin to nod. You need not follow the story either. Let it wash over you the way it washes over the children, just the warm rise and fall of an old voice in the firelight, telling of things long ago. There is nowhere to be, nothing to do, only the warmth and the soft voice in the falling snow. If you are still with me, there is no need to hold on tightly. The night will carry both of us from here. Let your thoughts loosen, let them wander where they like. Let us step outside, just for a moment, into the cold, clean dark. Oh, but it is beautiful out here now. While we sat by the fire, the last of the daylight has gone, and the great northern night has come. The sky is enormous and black and utterly clear, and it is filled from edge to edge with stars. More stars than you have ever seen, sharp and brilliant in the freezing air. The snow on the ground holds their faint light and glows softly, so that the whole world seems to shimmer, silver and blue, beneath the burning sky. And there, look, low over the mountains, a pale green light, faint at first, then brightening, stretching, beginning to move. The Northern Lights. Great silent curtains of green and violet, rippling slowly across the heavens, folding and unfolding, pouring across the stars. The people here have watched this all their lives on the clearest and coldest of winter nights, and they have woven it deep into their stories. Some say it is the light glinting off the armor of the Valkyries riding across the sky. However they name it, they fall asleep beneath it, as people have here for thousands of years, this slow, silent, shimmering fire in the dark. The cold is deep and clean, and the village is silent now. The boats sleep on the shore, the fjord lies black and still. A single dog barks once, far off, and then is quiet. Smoke rises straight and gray from every snow-covered roof into the starlight. And behind every door, in the warm red firelight, the people of the North are settling down to sleep. The Norse had a gentle way of thinking about the night. They said that the night was a goddess, Note, they called her, dark-haired and kind. And each evening she mounts her horse, a fine dark steed named Hrimfaxi, which means frost mane, and she rides him all the way across the sky, from the eastern edge of the world to the western. And as he runs through the long night, foam falls from his bit down upon the earth below. And that, the Norse said, is where the morning dew comes from, the dew you find at dawn on the cold grass. And behind her, always following, rides her own son, Dagr, the day, on his shining horse, bringing the light back again. The dark was never to be feared. It was only Note, riding gently over, on her way to bring the morning. There is something deeply comforting in that, as your own eyes grow heavy. That the night is not empty and not endless. That it is only a kind goddess on a dark horse, riding slowly across the sky above your roof. And that her son the day rides always close behind. Let us slip back inside now, into the warmth, one last time. The story is over. The fire has burned down to a deep, glowing bed of embers, and someone banks it carefully with ash, so that a few coals will live through the night and wake easily at dawn. For to let the fire die completely on a winter night like this is a hard and cold beginning to the day. The last soapstone lamp, burning its little pool of fish oil, is pinched out, and the long hall sinks into a deep, warm, red-glowing dark. All down the length of the house, the family lies wrapped in furs along the benches, close together, close to the warmth. The old man, his carving set aside. The weaver, her loom gone quiet. The children, deep asleep already, their story dreams full of gods and giants. The animals breathing slowly in the dark at the end of the hall. And over them all, the soft tick and settle of the cooling timbers, and the whisper of snow on the roof. And somewhere far above, Note riding her dark horse on across the stars. More than 1,000 years have passed since this night, the one we have been walking through together. The longhouses are gone, their timbers long since returned to the earth, their hearths grown cold beneath the grass. The names of the old carver, and the weaver, and the grandmother telling her tale were never written down and are lost. And yet the fjord still lies dark between the mountains, exactly as it did. The same snow falls. The same northern lights still pour their silent fire across the sky. And the night still comes, every evening, just as gently, and goes again by morning. The people of the village are asleep now, wrapped in their furs, in the warm red dark, with the fire banked low and the snow falling soft on the roof, and the whole long winter night around them. They do not know that we came to visit. They are only sleeping, as the whole world sleeps, as you, perhaps, are sleeping now. So let go of the last of it, whatever you are still holding. The night has the fjord, and the mountains, and the falling snow. The night has you. There is nothing more to be done, and there never was. Not is riding gently over on her dark horse, and the morning rides always close behind. You have only to rest and let the long night carry you. Sleep well, and when you are ready to travel again, Nox Historia will be waiting. Good night. Good evening, and welcome to Nox Historia. Tonight, we travel to the world of Tang Dynasty China, to the great capital of Chang'an, on a warm evening as the light begins to fade and the city prepares itself for the coming of night. Settle yourself now. Let the day you have carried loosen its hold on your shoulders. Let the pillow take the weight of your head, and let your breath grow slow and even, the way the breath softens on its own when there is nowhere left to be. We are going to walk together through a city that once was the largest on the whole of the earth, and we are going to do it slowly, in the quiet hours, when the work is done and the lamps are being lit. The time is roughly the middle of the 8th century, somewhere near 750 of the Common Era, nearly 1,300 years ago. This is the Tang Dynasty, an age the Chinese themselves would remember ever after as a golden time. And here is something most people never learn. This city, Chang'an, held perhaps 1 million souls within its walls, when London was a muddy town of a few thousand, and much of Europe had all but forgotten how to build in stone. Chang'an was laid out as a vast and perfect grid, its avenues wide as rivers, its walls running for miles, all of it arranged with such order that a traveler could know exactly where he stood simply by counting the streets. You do not need to remember any of this. There will be no test in the morning, no dates to keep, no names to hold. If your mind wanders, let it wander. If you drift away in the middle of a quiet street and never learn how the evening ends, that is not a failure. That is exactly what this is for. The history is only here to give your thoughts somewhere gentle to rest. So let the facts wash over you like warm water and keep nothing you do not wish to keep. Now, let us begin. Let us stand together at the edge of the city as the sun goes down. See how the light lies low and golden over Chang'an. We are standing on a rise to the east, and the city spreads before us like a great board marked out in squares. The avenues run arrow straight, north to south and east to west, dividing the whole capital into more than 100 neighborhoods, each one a walled block called a ward. From up here you can see the pattern of it, orderly as a page of writing, softening now as the sun sinks and the shadows grow long between the walls. Far to the north stands the palace, its tiled roofs catching the last of the light. And down the middle of it all runs the great avenue they call the Vermilion Bird Street, so broad that hundreds of people might walk abreast and never touch. The air is warm and carries the smell of dust settling, of cooking fires being kindled, of the dry earth giving up the heat of the day. You can hear, very faintly, the murmur of 1,000,000 lives folding themselves toward evening. A voice calling a child home, the creak of a cart, a dog somewhere far off. It is the sound a great city makes when it begins, at last, to rest. There is nowhere you need to be tonight but here, watching the light leave the roofs of the oldest golden city in the world. Now let your gaze move to the towers. In two places within the city, rising above the low roofs, stand the great drum tower and the bell tower. These are the timekeepers of Chang'an, and they govern the rhythm of the night. As the sun finishes its going down, the drums begin, a slow, deep beating, rolling out across the wards, hundreds of strokes carried on the evening air. It is not a harsh sound, not from where we stand. It is soft with distance, a low heartbeat under the city, felt almost more than heard. And its meaning is known to every soul within the walls. The day is ending, and the gates are closing. For this is how the nights worked in Tang Chang'an. Each ward was its own small walled world, with gates that opened at dawn and shut at dark. When the drums sounded their evening roll, the great gates of the outer city swung closed, and then the gates of each ward, one after another, until the whole capital was a nest of quiet enclosures, each family safe within its own square. A curfew lay over the open avenues through the dark hours, but inside the walls of each ward, life went softly on. The lamps, the meals, the low talk of families settling for the night. We often imagine the past as a lawless, frightening dark, but here is a gentle correction to that idea. This curfew was not born of fear so much as of order and care, a way of holding a vast city calm through the night, of letting 1,000,000 people sleep in peace behind their walls. The closing of the gates was not a threat. It was more like the tucking in of the whole city, ward by ward, until all of Chang'an lay quiet under the stars. Come down now, off the hill, and let us walk one of these great avenues while there is still time before the gates are shut. See how wide it is, wider than any street you have ever walked, planted along its edges with rows of elms and pagoda trees whose leaves stir faintly in the evening wind. The dust of the day is settling on the packed earth of the roadway. A last few travelers hurry quietly toward the gates of their own wards, for none wish to be caught out in the open avenues after dark. A merchant leads a tired camel homeward, its bell muffled and low, and you understand at once that this is no ordinary city, for that camel has come a very long way indeed. Rest your eyes here a moment on this small square of darkening sky, framed by the low gray roofs. There is a great peace in a courtyard at dusk. Feel how the walls hold the quiet in. Now let us go in, out of the courtyard, into the warmth of the lamplit rooms. Inside, the lamps are lit. They burn oil, sesame oil, or the fat of animals, in small dishes or in lamps of bronze and pottery, each with a little floating wick that gives a soft and wavering light. There are no bright electric glares here, none of the hard light we know. There is only this gentle golden glow, pooling on the low wooden tables, catching the grain of the wood, throwing soft shadows up the plastered walls. The light of a Tang evening is a small and precious thing, and the family gathers close about it. The rooms are simply furnished, by our reckoning, low tables, mats and cushions upon the floor. For in this age, people mostly sit and kneel rather than perch on high chairs, which are only just beginning to come into fashion from the lands to the west. There are lacquered boxes, a folding screen painted with mountains, a scroll or two upon the wall. Everything is low and close, so that the whole room feels gathered downward toward the warm center where the family sits. And here, of course, there is tea. See the small pot warming and the cups set out. In this age, the drinking of tea is becoming a great and refined pleasure across the empire. Indeed, it is in these very Tang years that a scholar named Lu Yu writes the first great book upon the subject, the Classic of Tea, setting down how the leaf should be chosen and prepared and drunk. When you next hold a warm cup of tea in your own hands, know that you are joined across 13 centuries to the people of this quiet room, who are, at this very moment, doing exactly the same thing. Take the warmth of that cup into yourself now. Let it spread through you, slow and easy, from your hands to your chest to the very ends of you. The evening meal is being brought out now and set upon the low table. Watch the dishes come. There is rice, or in these northern parts perhaps millet and wheat, made into steamed cakes and noodles. For it is in this land, in ages such as this, that so many of the noodle maker's arts were perfected. There are vegetables, pickled and fresh, a little meat and perhaps a fish, sauces and the flavors of ginger and scallion and fermented bean. Along the Silk Road have come new tastes too, pepper and sesame, and fruits from the far west. The family eats together, seated on their mats about the low table, sharing from the common dishes, the lamplight gleaming softly on the bowls. There is no hurry to the meal. The talk is low and easy, of the day that is past, of small matters, of the price of cloth and the health of a cousin and the turning of the season. A grandmother tells a child, again, a story the child has heard 100 times. Chopsticks click gently against the bowls. Outside, the ward is silent now. The gate is shut. The city beyond the wall is only a memory. Here, there is only the warm room, the good food, the family close together in the light of the little lamps. Let the murmur of their talk become a kind of music, wordless and soft, the way voices sound through a wall when you are almost asleep. Let it carry you. When the meal is done and the bowls are cleared away, let us cross the courtyard to another room where a single lamp still burns late. Here sits a scholar, perhaps the eldest son of the house, perhaps an uncle who studies for the great examinations. For this is one of the wonders of the Tang world, that a man might rise in life not by his birth alone, but by his learning, by passing the imperial examinations, long and difficult tests of the classics and of poetry, through which the empire chose its officials. And so, all across Chang'an, men sit late by lamplight over their books and their brushes, memorizing the words of the ancient sages and composing poems of their own. For this, above all, was the great art of the Tang, poetry. This age produced the finest poets in all the long history of China, and their verses are studied and loved and known by heart to this very day. There was Li Bai, wild and wandering, who wrote of wine and moonlight and the loneliness of the traveler, and Du Fu, grave and tender, who wrote of the sorrows of ordinary people and the beauty of small things. We know this because their poems survive, thousands upon thousands of them, gathered and copied down and treasured across the centuries, so that we may read tonight the very words a man set down by lamplight in a room such as this one. Watch him grind his ink upon the stone, mixing the black cake with a little water, and dip his brush and draw a single line of characters down the page. See how still he is, how the lamplight trembles on the paper. He is writing, perhaps, of this very evening, of the moon rising over the tiled roofs, of a friend far away, of the quiet that comes when the city sleeps. And you may rest in the knowing that somewhere, in the great darkness of the past, such words were truly written and truly kept, and have come all this long way down to us. Let his brush move slowly across your mind. Let each soft stroke settle you deeper. Before the house grows fully dark, let us pause at one more corner of it, a small shrine set within an alcove of the wall. Here the family keeps its shrine to the ancestors, and perhaps a small image of a gentler kind. For the beliefs of Tang China wove together many threads. There was the old reverence for one's forebears, whose spirits were felt to watch over the house. There was the way of Confucius, which taught order and duty and the proper love between parent and child. There was the Tao, the old teaching of harmony with the great flow of nature, of yielding and softness. And there was the Buddha, whose teaching had traveled the long roads out of India and now filled the empire with monasteries and pagodas and the soft sound of chanting. A stick of incense may be lit here in the evening, its thin gray thread of smoke rising into the dark, its sweet smell drifting through the rooms. A small bow is made. A few quiet words are spoken to those who came before. It is a gentle thing, this evening remembrance, a way of saying that the dead are not so very far, that the family is a long chain reaching back through the generations, and that tonight, as every night, the living pause a moment to honor the long line behind them. Breathe in that faint sweetness of incense. Let it remind you that you too are held in a long chain of those who slept before you, night after night, back and back through all the years. Now the lamps are being put out, one by one, and the family goes to its rest. See how simply they sleep. Mats and quilts are unrolled upon the low platforms or upon the warm places of the floor. The children are already drowsing, carried to their beds half asleep. A last lamp is dimmed. The wooden screens are drawn. In the dark, the house creaks and settles, the way old houses do, and the breathing of the family grows slow and deep, one by one, until the whole household is asleep behind its walls, within its ward, within the great sleeping city. And all across Chang'an, in 100 wards, behind 100 closed gates, this same thing is happening. 1 million people lying down to sleep beneath the same night sky, the lamps going dark, the city sinking into its deep and orderly rest. Somewhere, far off and soft, the drum will beat the watches of the night, marking the slow hours until dawn. But it is only a whisper now, a distant heartbeat under the dark, nothing to trouble a sleeping child. Let yourself lie down among them in your mind. Let your body grow as heavy and as still as theirs. There is nothing left to do tonight. The gates are shut, the lamps are out. You are safe within the walls. But before we let the whole city fall into sleep, let us step out once more into the courtyard and look up. The sky over Chang'an is deep and clear and thick with stars, in an age long before any glow of electric light could dim them. The moon is rising over the gray-tiled roofs, round and pale and calm. And to the people of this land, the moon was never merely a stone in the sky. They saw in its shadows a great cassia tree, and beneath it a hare, forever pounding herbs with a mortar and pestle, the medicine of long life. And there, in the cold and silent palace of the moon, they placed a lady named Chang'an, who long ago drank an elixir and drifted up and up, away from the earth, to dwell alone in that pale light forever. The poets of the Tang loved the moon above all things. Li Bai, they say, wrote again and again of raising his cup to it, of the moon as a companion to the lonely traveler, of its light falling on the floor before his bed like frost, and of how, seeing it, a man far from home would think of the place he came from. When you look up at the moon on some quiet night of your own, you are looking at the very same face they looked upon, the same hair, the same lady, the same cool and constant light that has watched over every sleeper who has ever lived. Rest your gaze on that soft moon a while. Let it be the last thing you see. Let its calm, unhurried light fill you up and quiet every last corner of your mind. And so the great city sleeps. Chang'an lies still now beneath the moon and the wheeling stars. The palace dark, the avenues empty, the wards all closed and quiet. A million souls at rest within its walls. The poet has laid down his brush. The tea has grown cold in the cup. The incense has burned to a thread of ash. All the noise and color and wonder of the greatest city on earth has folded itself gently away into the dark, as it did on that evening 1,300 years ago. They are all asleep now, the merchant and the scholar, the grandmother and the drowsing child, the whole vast city breathing slow and even in the dark, as you, perhaps, are sleeping now. So let go of the last of it. Let go of the day behind you and the day ahead. Let go of the streets and the lamps and the moon, of Chang'an and its walls and its million quiet dreamers. There is nothing left to hold. There is nowhere left to go. There is only the warm dark and your slow and easy breath and the deep, good rest that is waiting for you. Sleep well, and when you are ready to travel again, Nox Historia will be waiting. Good night, good evening, and welcome to Nox Historia. Tonight, we travel to medieval England. Wherever you are, and however your day has been, you can set it all down now. There is nothing left to do tonight. Nothing to fix, nothing to finish. Just let yourself grow heavy. Let your breathing slow, and come with me, gently, in no hurry at all, to a small English town on a cool autumn evening some 700 years ago. We are going to the Middle Ages, though no one alive in this town has ever called it that, of course. To them, this is simply the world, and the present moment, as ordinary and as real as your own. And it is a far gentler, far more ordinary world than you might imagine. Tonight, you will see no knights and no battles and no kings. Only a quiet country town, and the people in it settling down, as people always have, to sleep. You do not need to remember any of this. You do not need to follow closely or picture every detail. Just let the words drift past you, like the sound of a far-off bell across the fields at dusk. And if, somewhere along the way, you happen to fall asleep, good. That is exactly what this is for. It is the very end of the day. The autumn sun has gone down behind the church tower, and the sky above the rooftops has faded from gold to rose to a deep and dusty violet. The air is growing cool and still, and smells of wood smoke and turned earth and the last of the year's apples. The harvest is in, the hard work of the year is mostly done, and the little town is breathing out, slowly, into the quiet of the evening. It is a small place, most medieval towns were. A few hundred souls, perhaps 1,000 or two, for in all of England in these years, only London was truly large. Here there is one good street of timber-framed houses, their upper floors jutting out over the road below on great oak beams, leaning toward their neighbors overhead. There is a market square and a stone church and a huddle of workshops in gardens, all wrapped within an earthen bank or a low wall, with gates that will soon be shut for the night. Beyond them lie the open fields and the woods and the dark. Listen now. There it is, the sound that ends every day in this town. A single great bell, tolling slow and deep from the church tower, out over the rooftops and the fields. This is the curfew bell. And here's a thing worth knowing as you lie there in the quiet. Our word, curfew, comes, almost unchanged, from the old French words couvre-feu, which mean, quite simply, cover the fire. For in a town built almost entirely of timber and thatch, a single stray ember in the night could destroy everything. And so, at the sound of the bell, most often around 8 o'clock in the evening, every household was to bank down its hearth fire for the night, to rake the glowing coals together and cover them over with ash so that no flame could escape in the dark, and so that, in the morning, a few embers would still be alive to wake the fire again. The curfew was not a rule about staying indoors, as we use the word now. It was, at heart, a gentle nightly act of care. Cover the fire. Make the house safe. Let the day end. That bell, and the others like it, were how this whole town knew the time at all. For there were almost no clocks in this world. Not yet. The townsfolk told the hours by the ringing of the church bells, which carried to every corner of so small a place, and by the slow wheel of the stars, and by the light. And their hours were not quite our hours either. They divided the daylight into 12, and the night into 12, whatever the season, so that an hour of daylight in high summer was a long, generous thing, and an hour of a winter's night much the same, while their opposites shrank short. Time itself breathed in and out with the turning year. The very first mechanical clocks were only just beginning to appear, in these very years, in a few great churches, and the earliest of them had no face and no hands at all. They were built only to strike a bell, to call the monks to prayer. We carry the quiet echoes of all this with us still. When we say a thing happens at 6 o'clock, we are saying, without knowing it, 6 of the clock. And our word noon once meant not midday at all, but the 9th hour of the day, nearer to 3 in the afternoon, before, slowly, over long years, it drifted back to the middle of the day where we keep it now. If your eyes have already begun to close, let them. You can stop listening whenever you like. I will keep walking, slowly, through these darkening streets, and you can come with me as far as you wish to go. In the market square, the last of the day's trading is long over. By day, this is the beating heart of the town, the stalls and the calling of prices, the farmers in from the villages with eggs and cheese and grain, the smell of fresh bread, the geese and the gossip. But now the stalls are bare boards, and the square is empty, and the cobbles hold the last gray light. A cat crosses, unhurried, and vanishes into a doorway. And the great church, which has stood over this square for longer than anyone can remember, settles into its evening shadow. Let us turn down a side lane where one low window still glows warm and yellow in the dusk. This is the alehouse, though it has no sign that we would recognize, only a long pole, a stake, thrust out above the door with a bush of greenery tied to its end. That stake is the signal that fresh ale is ready within. And here is something that surprises many people. The drink of medieval England was not beer, but ale, and they are not the same thing. Beer is brewed with hops, which give it its bite and, more importantly, help it keep. But ale had no hops at all. It would not keep more than a few days before it soured, and so it had to be brewed fresh, constantly, in small batches, in ordinary homes. And the brewing of it, in these years, was women's work. Across the whole of England, it was the alewives, the brewsters, who made the nation's ale in their own kitchens and hung out the stake above the door when a new batch was ready to sell. The warm murmur of the last few drinkers drifts out into the lane, and then the shutter is drawn, and the lane goes dark and quiet. There is no hurry. We have all night. Now, from the deep shadows by the town gate, comes the soft tread of footsteps and the swing of a horn lantern throwing its little pool of light across the cobbles. This is the watch, the men whose task it is to guard the sleeping town through the dark. There were no policemen in this world, not for centuries yet. Instead, the men of the town took it in turns, night after night, to keep what was called the watch and ward. A great law, set down in the year 1285, laid out how it should be done. The town gates were to be shut from sunset to sunrise, and a watch of men was to walk the streets through the dark nights of the year, and to stop any stranger abroad after dark, and hold him until morning. So the watchman makes his slow round, his lantern swinging, his breath clouding in the cold. He tries a door, finds it sound, moves on. All is quiet. All is well. The town is sleeping, and he is awake, so that it may sleep in peace. Let us step now through a low doorway into one of the small timber houses along the street, where a family is making ready for bed. Inside, it is dim and warm and close. The floor is of beaten earth, strewn with fresh rushes. The walls are of wattle and daub, a woven lattice of hazel branches, packed with clay and straw, then whitewashed. In the center, the hearth fire has been banked down for the night, just as the curfew bell asked, a soft red glow of embers beneath gray ash, breathing out a gentle warmth into the room. And see how they light these last few minutes before bed. Not with candles, for a good candle of clean beeswax was a luxury far beyond an ordinary family, kept for churches and for the rich. Even tallow candles of rendered animal fat cost more than many could spare. Instead, the poor of England lit their homes with something almost free, the rushlight. A simple rush, gathered from the wet ground, peeled down to its soft white pith, dried, and then drawn through a little melted kitchen fat left over from cooking. Set to burn at an angle in a small iron clip, it gave a soft, low, golden flame. We know, from a man who carefully measured it long after, that a rushlight of some 2.5 feet would burn for very nearly an hour, about a finger's width every few minutes, a small and patient light slowly going down. By the glow of such a light, the family says its prayers and banks the fire and lies down to sleep. And now we come to something truly remarkable about the nights of long ago, something you have, perhaps, never been told. The people of this town are not going to sleep straight through until morning, as we try to. They are going to sleep twice. For this was the way of it all across the old world, before bright lamps and busy late nights changed us. People went to bed not long after dark and fell into what they simply called their first sleep. They would sleep deeply for a few hours, and then, quite naturally, with no alarm and no worry, they would drift awake again around the middle of the night into a quiet, peaceful waking hour. And then, a little later, they would sink down once more into their second sleep until the dawn. We know this not from one or two old tales, but from hundreds upon hundreds of mentions, in diaries and letters, and old medical books and prayers and poems, that speak of the first sleep and the second sleep as the most ordinary things in the world, the way we might speak of breakfast. So let the family sink, now, into that first sleep. The rushlight is pinched out. The house goes dark, but for the red breath of the embers. And all down the street, behind every shuttered window, the people of the town are letting go of the day and falling, gently, into the first sleep of the night. While the town sleeps, let us walk a little way beyond its edge, to where a low cluster of stone buildings stands dark against the stars. This is the monastery, and here, alone in all the sleeping land, there are men who rise in the deepest part of the night, on purpose, to pray. The monks live their whole lives by the slow ringing of bells, 8 times across the day and night, each marking an hour of prayer with names worn smooth by long use. Lauds at dawn, vespers at dusk, compline before bed. But the strangest and the oldest of these is the night office, which they keep in the small hours, around 2 in the morning, when the rest of the world is deep asleep. A bell rings softly in the cold dormitory. The monks rise in the dark and file down a worn stone stair and gather in the candlelit church to sing into the silence of the night. And then, their long night office done, they return to their beds for a little more sleep before the dawn. Near the church stands the room where, by day, the great work of this place is done, the scriptorium, where the monks copy out their books by hand. For in a world with no printing of any kind, every single book must be written out, letter, by a patient hand. To copy out one large book might take half a year of work, a whole Bible, a year or more. And the beauty they made was extraordinary. The most precious of their colors, a deep and glowing blue called ultramarine, was ground from a stone called lapis lazuli, carried thousands of miles by land and sea, all the way from the mountains of distant Afghanistan, and it was, weight for weight, as costly as gold itself, save for the robe of the Virgin alone. A single great Bible might use the skins of some 500 animals for its pages. The room is dark and still now, the desks empty, the half-finished pages laid carefully away from any flame. But by day, here, in patient silence, ordinary men made things of such beauty that we still catch our breath at them, 800 years on. If you are still with me, there is no need to hold on tightly. The night will carry both of us from here. For now, across the sleeping town, the first sleep is ending. Here and there, people are drifting awake into that quiet hour in the middle of the night, the waking time between the two sleeps. And it was not a thing to fear or to fret over the way we fret now when we wake in the dark. It was simply a part of the night, and people had gentle, easy uses for it. Some lay quietly and talked with the one beside them in the soft dark. Some rose to tend the fire or to check on a child or a beast. Some thought back over the dreams of their first sleep, which were believed to mean a great deal. And many, in this God-fearing age, simply lay still and prayed. There were even prayer books written for this very hour, for the things to think on while you lay awake between your sleeps. Imagine that, a whole quiet world, awake together in the dark, in the middle of the night, and perfectly at peace with it. And if any of them rose and stepped to the door and looked up, they would have seen a sky that almost none of us will ever see now. For there was no other light, no street lamps, no glow on the horizon from distant cities, nothing at all but the moon and the stars. And so the heavens above this little town blazed with more stars than you can well imagine, some 2,000 or more, visible to the naked eye, and the whole great pale river of the Milky Way pouring clear across the dark from one side of the sky to the other. It is a sky we have very nearly lost. Today, most of us live where its faint glow can no longer be seen at all. But every soul in this sleeping town knew it by heart. It was simply the roof of the world. The same stars wheeling slowly over every single night of their lives. It was not all peace, of course, the medieval night. These were people who feared the dark in their own ways, as every age has. They believed the night air itself could carry sickness, a foulness that rose with the dark and the damp, against which the wise shuttered their windows tight. And out in the marshes and the fields, they told of strange pale lights that flickered and drifted just above the ground, and seemed to beckon a traveler off the safe path and into the bog. The will-o'-the-wisp, they called it, the foolish fire, among a dozen older names. We know now it is only marsh gas, faintly glowing. But on a dark night, far from home, with no light but the moon, it is easy to understand how a wandering light in the dark might set the heart racing. And yet, shuttered safe indoors, with the fire banked and the door barred, none of that could reach them. The fears stayed outside, in the dark, where they belonged. The waking hour passes, gently. One by one, those who have stirred grow heavy again and pull up the blankets and let themselves down into the second sleep, the long, deep sleep that carries them on to the morning. The watchman's lantern moves, far off, and is still. The embers settle on 100 hearths. The monks are back in their beds. And the great bell in the church tower marks the slow hours over the rooftops to no one but the stars. 700 years and more have passed since this night, the one we have been walking through together. The little timber houses are long gone. The church, perhaps, still stands. The names of the alewife and the watchman and the family asleep by their banked fire were never written down and are lost. We are very quick now to call their whole age a dark one, but they were not the fools we sometimes imagine. Their scholars knew well that the world was round. Those who lived past the dangers of childhood often saw their 50s and 60s and beyond. They built cathedrals that still stand and made books of heartbreaking beauty and worked out a gentle, sensible way to pass the long nights, 2 sleeps and a peaceful waking hour between, which some now think may suit us far better than the way we sleep today. And the night still comes to that town, wherever it lies beneath the modern world, just as gently as it came then. The people of the town are deep in their second sleep now, the watchmen leaning by the gate, the monks returned to their cells, the family by the red glow of the banked fire, the rushlight long since out. They do not know that we came to visit. They are only sleeping, as the whole world sleeps, as you, perhaps, are sleeping now. So let go of the last of it, whatever you are still holding. The fire is covered, the gates are shut, the watch is keeping. There is nothing left to do, and there never was, only to let the first sleep take you, gently, the way it has taken sleepers for 1,000 years, down into the warm and the dark, with the second sleep and the dawn, waiting quietly on the far side of the night. Sleep well, and when you are ready to travel again, Nox Historia will be waiting. Good night. Good evening, and welcome to Nox Historia. Tonight, we travel to the world of Old Istanbul, the great city on the water between 2 continents in the age of Suleiman the Magnificent, around the year 1550, nearly 500 years ago now. A city that was once called Constantinople, and before that Byzantium, and that had already stood in one form or another for more than 1,000 years before the evening we are about to share. Settle yourself. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let the weight of the day go soft beneath you, the way the light goes soft over a city at dusk. There is nowhere you need to be tonight but here, and here is a place that no longer exists exactly as it once did. A warm, lamplit, unhurried version of a city that in truth was one of the largest on the whole of the earth. Perhaps 500,000 souls lived within it and around it in those years, more than Paris, more than London. A meeting place where Europe leaned across the water toward Asia and Asia leaned back. And here is something most people never learn. We tend to imagine such a place as loud, as grand, as endlessly public, bazaars and processions and the glint of empire. But a great city is mostly its evenings. It is mostly quiet courtyards and cooling stone and the small yellow flame of a single lamp behind a wooden lattice, and families settling, and the day letting go of itself. That is the Istanbul we will walk through tonight. Not the empire in daylight, the city as it breathes out. You do not need to remember any of this, not the dates, not the names, not a single fact. Let them drift past you like lamplight on a wall. If you find your attention loosening, if the words begin to blur and fold into the dark, then let them. If you fall asleep before we reach the stars over the water, that is exactly what this is for. This is not a lesson to be passed. It is a place to be carried into sleep. So let us begin. Let us stand first upon one of the 7 hills of the city, in the last of the daylight, and simply look. Below and all around, the rooftops fall away in soft terracotta waves. Low houses of timber and stone, packed close, their tiles catching the last of the sun in 100 shades of rose and amber and dusty gold. And rising above them, again and again, the great gray domes, round and heavy and calm, like sleeping creatures, each one crowned by the slender needles of its minarets, reaching up into a sky that is turning the color of a ripe apricot. See how the light lies along the water in the distance, the strait they call the Bosphorus, the narrow silver channel that divides the continents and joins the seas. You need not go down to it tonight. It is enough to know it is there, a band of cooling brightness at the edge of everything, carrying the last few sails home. The wind that comes up from it is gentle now, evening wind, and it moves through the cypress trees on the hillsides so that they sway, slow and dark and tall, like something patient that has learned how to wait. And there, the newest and greatest of the domes, still fresh, its stone still pale. This is the mosque that Suleiman the Sultan has ordered built upon this very hill, and it is being raised in these very years by his master architect, a man named Sinan. Thousands of workers have labored on it. Its 4 minarets carry 10 balconies between them, one for each sultan who has reigned since the founding of the line. A quiet count of years written into stone against the sky. We know all this because the building still stands, 5 centuries on. You could walk into it tomorrow, and travelers have written of it in every generation between then and now. Now the light thickens and goes golden and then rose, and from the highest balcony of the nearest minaret, a single human voice rises into the evening air. It is the call to prayer, drifting out over the rooftops, unhurried, rising and falling, a melody more than a summons. And then, from further off, a second voice answers it from another minaret, and a third from beyond that, and a fourth, softer still, until the whole city seems to be gently singing to itself across the dusk. The sound carries the way sound carries over water at the end of a day, blurred and warm and without edges. It is one of 5 such calls that mark the hours. This is the one at sunset, the one that tells the city the day is ending. Hear how the people below pause. A porter sets down his load. A woman on a rooftop straightens from her washing. And all across the hills, quietly, in courtyards and in mosques, and in the small, clean rooms of homes, people turn to face the same distant point far to the south, and bow, and let the day be finished. There is no hurry in it. The sound washes over you and asks nothing of you. You may simply let it hold you the way it holds them. And when the last note fades, the light is nearly gone, and the great bazaar is closing its doors. Let us walk down now into the covered heart of the city, the grand bazaar, a whole world of vaulted stone streets roofed against the sky, lit by day through small, high windows. All day it has roared, softly, with the business of half a continent. Silk from further east, wool and amber from the north, spices, coppered lamps, carpets deep as gardens, gold weighed out on tiny scales. But the roar is over now. The last customers have gone. See how the shopkeepers pull down their wooden shutters, one after another, along the arcades. A soft rolling clatter that moves away from you into the dark like a receding tide. A lamp is snuffed here, a padlock turned there. The carpets are rolled and stacked. The scent of the day lingers, though the noise has gone. Cinnamon and cardamom and dust and lamp oil and the dry sweetness of old wood. An old man sweeps the swept floor one last time, out of habit more than need, and then he too puts up his broom and goes. And so the bazaar empties, and the great vaulted streets fall silent, and only the caretaker walks them now with his single lamp, its light swaying along the arches, catching the gilt of a locked door, the curve of a hanging chain, and then moving on and letting the dark come back behind it. The city is folding its daytime self away, shop by shop, and turning toward home. Out into the lanes, then, the narrow climbing lanes between the houses, where the evening has already gathered. These streets are not wide and straight the way we build them now. They wind. They rise and fall with the hills. They are barely wide enough for 2 to pass, and the upper stories of the timber houses lean out overhead, their carved wooden balconies almost touching above your head, so that walking here is like walking through a long, soft wooden canyon, roofed by a strip of darkening sky. Underfoot, the worn stones are still warm from the day. A cat watches you from a wall and then loses interest and folds itself smaller and closes its eyes. Here and there, a lamp has been lit behind a lattice window. The wooden screens they carve so finely, all little stars and interlacing shapes, so that the light comes through in a scatter of small gold points, and you cannot see in, and those inside cannot quite be seen. A little of wood smoke is in the air now, and cooking, onions and lamb and something sweet. Somewhere a child laughs and is hushed gently. A door closes. The lane grows quieter with every step, as though the whole street were breathing more and more slowly. There is a common idea, worth setting gently aside, that a city like this was a place of endless palaces and glittering excess. But the truth of it, the daily truth, was streets exactly like this one. Modest homes of wood and plaster, people of every faith and tongue living wall to wall, Muslim and Christian and Jewish families in their own quarters, all of them ending the day in much the same way. A meal, a lamp, the settling of children, sleep. An empire, seen up close, is mostly people going home. Let us follow one of them home now. through a low wooden door in a high wall, into the courtyard of an ordinary house. The house turns its back on the street and opens instead onto this, a small enclosed courtyard, quiet and private, the heart of the home. This is how they build here, the outside plain and closed, the inside kept for the family. There is a fig tree in the corner, its broad leaves black against the last gray light. There are pots of herbs, basil and mint, releasing their scent into the cooling air as the day's heat lifts out of the stones. A wooden gallery runs around the upper floor, and from it hang the soft shapes of a few lanterns, not yet lit. The courtyard has held the warmth of the whole day, and now it gives it back slowly, so that the air here is mild and still, the sky above a deepening blue, with the very first star just showing at its edge. Someone has been here recently, a cushion left on the low bench, a book set down, a shawl over the rail. The house is exhaling the day. You can feel it. The kind of quiet that is not empty, but full of people close by, unhurried, at ease. And now, from an upper window, comes the first warm bloom of lamplight. Watch how it changes everything. A single oil lamp lit within, and at once the wooden lattice of the window glows gold from inside. Every carved star suddenly a small bright shape, and a soft square of amber light falls down into the courtyard and lies across the worn stones. Another lamp is lit, and another. The lantern on the gallery is brought down and touched with a taper and hung again, and now it too casts its slow, swinging light over the fig tree and the herbs and the quiet bench. This is how the evening was made, before there was any other way, with a wick and a little oil and a small living flame. Every room was as bright as its lamps, and no brighter, and so the whole world contracted, at night, to a few warm circles of gold in a soft and endless dark. It made the evenings intimate in a way ours are not. You gathered where the light was. You drew close. The dark beyond the lamp was simply where the day's work rested until morning. And in that light, the family gathers to eat. They sit low around a large round tray set upon a folding stand, cushions beneath them, the lamplight moving over their faces. There is warm flatbread, torn and shared by hand. There is a stew of lamb slow-cooked with onions, aubergines soft as butter, rice, yogurt cool and white, olives, and a plate of ripe figs and grapes to finish. No one hurries. The food is passed and shared from the common dishes, and the talk is low and easy, the small talk of a family at the end of a day, what the child did, what the neighbor said, what tomorrow holds. Many of the things upon that tray you would know at your own table. The aubergine, the yogurt, the way the sweet fruit ends the meal. And after the food, someone brings out a small brass tray with tiny cups and pours out something new to the city in these years, something that has arrived only recently from the lands of the south and east, dark and hot and bitter and wonderful. Coffee. It is still a novelty here, this drink, still a small marvel, and the first houses devoted to it are opening even now in the streets nearby. You are watching, without knowing it, the very beginning of a habit that will one day belong to the whole world. To your own mornings, 5 centuries and half a planet away. Let us step out for just a moment, past the door, to catch a glimpse of one of those coffee houses. There, across the lane, warm light spilling from a low doorway, and inside, men sitting close on benches around the walls, small cups in their hands, the air blue with the smoke of it and murmurous with talk. A place like this is something genuinely new under the sun. There is nowhere quite like it in the world yet. Not a tavern, for there is no wine, but a house purely for sitting and talking and drinking this dark drink, and listening perhaps to a storyteller work his slow way through a tale everyone already knows. We will not go in. We are only passing, and the night is calling us back to quiet. But hear how the murmur of that room drifts out into the lane. Low voices, easy laughter, the soft clink of a cup set down, the sound of a city that has finished its labor and is simply keeping itself company in the dark. Then we turn away, and the light of it slips behind us, and the lane is ours again, and the stars are coming out. Back inside now, through the low door, into the courtyard, where the household is settling towards sleep. The tray has been cleared. The cups are rinsed and set to dry. In the warm rooms above, the day is being put away with the same gentle care as the shutters of the bazaar. A grandmother sits by a lamp with a spindle, spinning wool by feel more than sight, her hands moving in a rhythm older than the city. A father checks the door. A mother sits on the edge of a low bed and smooths the hair of a child who is already more than half asleep, and speaks a few soft words, and the child does not answer. There is very little furniture in these rooms, and this too is by design. By day, the low divans along the walls are for sitting. By night, thick mattresses are unrolled from the cupboards and laid upon the floor, quilts spread over them, and the sitting room simply becomes the sleeping room. The lamp is turned low. The carved shutters are drawn against the night air. The house grows dim and close and safe. One by one, the lamps of the house go out, or are turned down to the smallest ember of flame, just enough to find the way. The gold squares fade from the courtyard stones. The fig tree is only a shape now. And the whole house, which an hour ago glowed from within, goes dark and quiet, and joins the 10,000 other dark and quiet houses on the hills, all of them holding their sleeping families close in the great soft dark of the city. And still the household drifts down towards sleep. Someone lies listening in the near dark to the small last sounds of the night, the tick of the cooling house. A dog far off that barks twice and gives up. The wind in the cypress trees on the hillside, a long, slow hush that comes and goes like breathing. And beneath it all, so distant now as to be almost imagined, the faint murmur of the city itself. The last coffee house not yet closed, a boatman calling low across the water. The vast, quiet sound of 500,000 people breathing out the day at once. Feel how the body lets go when the light is gone and the house is safe and the day is truly finished. First the shoulders, then the hands uncurling. Then the long muscles of the back and legs softening into the mattress, into the floor, into the warm dark held between four still walls. There is nothing left to do tonight. The doors are shut, the lamps are out, the bread is baked for morning, and the water is drawn. Everything that needed doing has been done, or will keep until the light comes back. And so they sleep, the whole household, the whole lane, the whole hill of houses beneath their heavy domes. And you may feel yourself sinking with them, down through the layers of the evening, past the lamplight, past the quiet meal, past the last soft murmur, into the deep, still dark where the city keeps its people while the night turns over it. Now let us rise, gently, one last time, up above the sleeping roofs, into the cool, clear air over the city, and turn our eyes to the stars. See how they crowd the sky above old Istanbul in an age with no bright glare to drown them, thick and silver and slow wheeling from horizon to horizon, over the domes and the minarets and the dark hills and the pale ribbon of water between the continents. The same stars by which the sailors steer, by which the faithful reckon the direction of their prayers, by which every generation before the electric light told the passing of the hours of the night. There is no clock ticking in these houses. The night is told by the sky, and by the calls that will come again before dawn, and by the slow paling of the east. Below you, the Bosphorus lies still and dark and gleaming, and upon it a single late lantern moves. Some fishermen, some ferrymen, crossing between the sleeping shores, between Europe on the one hand and Asia on the other, as men have crossed here for 3,000 years and more. The city sleeps between two worlds, and has always slept between two worlds, a hinge of the earth where east meets west, and tonight, as on 10,000 nights, it simply rests and breathes and waits for morning under the wheeling stars. Think, if you like, as your thoughts begin to slow, of everything this quiet evening carried. The coffee that would one day reach your own table. The tulips that grew in these gardens that would one day be the pride of distant northern countries. The great domes that Chang'an raised that stand to this hour. All of it began in evenings exactly like this one, ordinary, lamplit, unremembered evenings, of families eating and children sleeping, and a city breathing out the day. They are all asleep now, the people of that far city, the family in the courtyard house, the shopkeeper of the bazaar, the old man with his broom, the child whose hair was smoothed. They have been asleep for 500 years. And yet, tonight, we walked among them for a little while, in the warm dark, by the light of a single lamp, as they settled into their rest, as you, perhaps, are settling now. As you, perhaps, are sleeping now. So let go of the last of it. Let go of the day behind you and the day ahead. Let go of the names and the dates, the domes and the stars, and let them fold away into the dark like shutters closing, like lamps turned gently down. You do not need to hold any of it. It is enough that you were here, for a little while, in the quiet of an old and gentle city, at the hour when everything comes to rest. Sleep well, and when you are ready to travel again, Nox Historia will be waiting. Good night. Good evening, and welcome to Nox Historia. Tonight, we travel to Old Japan. Wherever you are, and however your day has been, you can set it all down now. There is nothing left to do tonight. Nothing to fix, nothing to finish. Just let yourself grow heavy. Let your breathing slow. And come with me, gently, in no hurry at all, to the great city of Edo, the city we now call Tokyo, on a soft evening some 300 years ago. We are traveling to the time of the samurai and the shogun, the long, peaceful age the Japanese call the Edo period. But we are not going to find battles, for there were almost none. This was an age of peace that lasted more than 250 years. Indeed, here is something that may surprise you as you settle into your pillow. In all this long peace, most of the samurai never fought at all. They had become officials and clerks and keepers of records, many of them really quite poor, proud old warriors with little left to do but their paperwork. No, we are not going to find warriors tonight. We are going to find an ordinary city, full of ordinary people, settling down, as people always have, to sleep. You do not need to remember any of this. You do not need to follow closely or picture every detail. Just let the words drift past you, like the soft light of a paper lantern moving away down a dark street. And if, somewhere along the way, you happen to fall asleep, good. That is exactly what this is for. It is the end of the day in Edo. The sun is going down behind the low wooden rooftops, and the whole city, a city built almost entirely of wood and paper, glows for a moment, gold and amber, in the last of the light. From a temple somewhere across the rooftops comes the deep, round voice of a great bronze bell, struck once, slow and low. The sunset bell, the Irii no Kane, that has marked the close of the day here for longer than anyone can remember. The note hangs in the cooling air and slowly fades, and the long blue dusk comes down over the city. This in-between time, the soft hour of dusk, had a name of its own here and a gentle meaning. They called it Omagatoki, which means, more or less, the hour of meeting spirits. For in the half-light, when faces blur and shapes grow strange, it was felt that the boundary between this world and the next grew thin. It was not a thing to truly fear. It was simply the signal that the day was over, the hour when mothers called their children in from the lanes, and families gathered inside, and the lamps were lit against the coming dark. Come in now, the day is done. Gather in where it is warm. If your eyes have already begun to close, let them. You can stop listening whenever you like. I will keep walking, slowly, through these darkening streets, and you can come with me as far as you wish to go. Listen, there it is again, but a different bell now, closer, ringing out the hour over the rooftops. This is the Toki no Kane, the bell of time. For in this whole vast city, there were almost no clocks. Clocks were rare and costly things. Instead, the people lived by these great time bells, which rang from tall wooden towers and were passed, bell to bell, right across the city, so that wherever you stood, you were never far from one. And they counted the hours in a way that sounds strange to us. The Japanese of this age divided the day into hours that changed their length with the seasons, long and lazy on a summer's day, short on a winter's, and they named them not with numbers but for the animals of the zodiac. The hour of the rat, deep at midnight, the hour of the horse, at noon, the hour of the rooster, as the sun went down. And the bell did not ring 1, 2, 3, up to 12. It counted downward and never below 4. So the dusk we are standing in now was the hour they called Kuramutsu, dusk 6, when the shops put up their shutters and the neighborhood gates were closed for the night. You can hear, even now, those wooden gates being drawn shut along the streets. For Edo was a city of neighborhoods, each one a little world of its own, and at each end of a neighborhood stood a wooden gate, a kido, with a gatekeeper to mind it. As the night came on, the gates were closed, and the city settled into 1,000 small, safe enclosures, each one quietly minding its own. Let us walk a little while the last light goes down a narrow street of wooden houses. These are the machiya, the townhouses of the merchants and craftsmen, a shop in the front and the family's rooms behind, on plots so long and narrow they were fondly called eels' beds. And behind them, down the inner alleys, where most of the city's ordinary people lived, stand the nagaya, the long row houses, a whole row of little homes under one long roof, each family in a single small room, sharing a well and a courtyard between them all. It is a crowded, humble, friendly sort of place, the back alley of Edo. And it is settling now, room by room, into the evening. There is no hurry. We have all night. See how the street is lit, or rather, how it is barely lit at all. For there were no street lamps in Edo, none at all. A city of perhaps 1 million souls, and at night, almost entirely dark. The only lights are the ones people carry, the chochin, the round paper lantern, folding flat like an accordion when not in use, opening out around a single candle within, its paper sides painted with the crest of a family or the name of a shop. Here and there one bobs along through the dark, a little moon of warm light, carried by someone walking home, throwing a soft glow on the wooden walls as it passes. And then it turns a corner and is gone, and the street is dark again. Within the houses, The light is just as soft and just as dim. The homes of Edo were lit by the andon, a little lamp of paper stretched over a wooden frame, with a small dish of oil inside and a wick of rush floating in it, giving off a low, warm, golden glow, gentle as a held breath. The oil itself told you much about a household. The well-to-do burned clean-pressed rapeseed oil. The poor burned cheaper oil pressed from sardines, which cost about half as much, but which smoked and smelled faintly of fish and drew the neighborhood cats. By such a soft and smoky little light, the families of Edo passed their evenings and made ready for their rest. But first, for very many of them, there is the bath. Come, let us follow that lane to where a faint curtain of steam rises into the cool night air and a soft yellow light spills from a low doorway. This is the Sento, the public bathhouse, and it was the warm heart of every neighborhood in Edo. For in a city built of wood and paper, a private bath was a rare and dangerous thing. Too much fire risk, too much fuel. And so almost everyone, rich and poor alike, came here at the day's end to bathe together. There were said to be more than 500 bathhouses in the city. Inside, beyond a low doorway built to keep the precious heat in, the air is thick and warm and wet, dim with steam, and filled with the soft sounds of water and the low murmur of neighbors, easing the long day from their bones. To sink into that deep, hot water after a day's work in the gathering dark, there are few older or simpler comforts in all the world. And you may know that particular heaviness yourself, the warm, loose, sleepy heaviness of the body after a hot bath, when all you wish for is your bed. Out in the street again, the night has truly come. From somewhere in the dark drifts the gentle, wandering sound of a small bell, a wind chime hung from the pole of a night soba seller who carries his whole little kitchen on his shoulders through the dark streets, calling softly, selling warm bowls of buckwheat noodles to those still abroad in the night. The smell of his broth drifts on the cool air. Nearby, perhaps, a stall sells the new fashion of the city, small pressed parcels of vinegared rice topped with a sliver of fresh fish from the bay, a quick and cheap bite eaten standing up that the people of Edo simply called sushi. We think of it now as something fine. To them, it was the fastest of fast food, sold from a stall on a dark street corner, the pieces 2 or 3 times the size of the ones we know. Let us step now through a sliding wooden door into one of the small homes where a family is making ready for sleep. Off come the shoes at the earthen entrance, for no one walks indoors with the dust of the street. The room beyond is simple and clean and almost bare in the way of this country. A floor of woven straw mats, the tatami, soft and faintly sweet-smelling underfoot. Walls that are not walls at all, but sliding screens of paper and wood, the shoji, which glow softly when a lamp is lit behind them. There is very little furniture, for it is not wanted. The single low room is the whole of the home, the place where they eat by day and where, by night, they sleep. In the soft light of the lamp before bed, perhaps one of them is reading. For this was a city of readers, far more so than most people imagine of such a faraway age. A great many of the common folk of Edo could read and write, taught as children in little temple schools. And though a book was a costly thing to own, you did not need to own one. Walking lending libraries went from door to door, a great bundle of books on the lender's back, leaving a borrowed story here, collecting one there. Hundreds of them, carrying tales and poems and pictures through the lanes of the city. And so, by the glow of the little oil lamp, a tired shopkeeper turns the pages of a borrowed book in the last quiet minutes of the day, exactly as you might turn to a story now at the end of yours. and see how they make their beds. There are no bedsteads here, no great wooden frames. Instead, from a cupboard, they take out the futon, thick padded quilts, and lay them down, there, upon the soft tatami floor, smoothing them out in the lamplight. By day, these were folded away and put out of sight, so that the same small room could serve for everything. Only at night did it become a bedroom. And for a pillow, here is a curious thing. Many used not something soft, but a small, hard pillow, sometimes little more than a wooden stand, which cradled the neck and held the head up off the floor. It kept one cool through a warm night, and, for those with the elaborate oiled hairstyles of the age, which took long hours to arrange and were kept for many days, it held the hair up off the bedding, undisturbed, until morning. If you are still with me, there is no need to hold on tightly. The night will carry both of us from here. For this was a city, you must understand, that went early to its bed. With light so dim and so dear, and the work of the day beginning at dawn, there was little reason to sit up late. The people of Edo slept soon after dark, and rose with the first light. And so, as the evening deepens, the lamps are going out, one by one, behind the glowing paper screens all across the city, like stars going out in reverse. But not everyone may sleep. For over the dark and silent city, in tall wooden towers that rise above the rooftops, a few men keep watch through the whole of the night, and what they watch for is fire. For fire was the great terror of Edo, the one shadow over all its wooden streets. The fires came so often and spread so fast through the close-packed wood and paper that the people gave them a grim and beautiful nickname. They called the great fires the Flowers of Edo. From his high tower, the lookout watches the dark sea of rooftops for the first orange bloom of a flame, his hand near the alarm bell, ready to wake the whole quarter in an instant. It is a heavy watch to keep, but because he keeps it, the city below him may safely sleep. And should a flower of fire ever bloom in the night, the men who came running would not fight it as we would, with water. There was never water enough for that. Instead, the firemen of Edo, nimble steeplejacks, used to high places, would pull down the houses all around the blaze, clearing a bare gap that the flames could not leap, and so starved the fire of the wood it fed on. The townsfolk had banded into nearly 50 fire brigades, each named for a single letter, each with its own tall carved standard that a brave man would carry up onto a rooftop at the very edge of the fire, and hold there, in the heat and the smoke, to mark how far his brigade would let the flames come, and no further. But tonight there is no fire. Tonight there is only the watching, and the dark, and the quiet. And through the streets themselves, another keeps the watch. Listen, there, in the quiet. A sharp, clear wooden sound, 2 blocks of hardwood struck smartly together. Ka-chin, ka-chin. It is the night watchman, walking his slow round through the dark lanes, striking his wooden clappers, and calling out, soft and steady, the same words that have echoed through these streets on every cold, dry night for 100 years and more. Hi no yojin, beware of fire, take care of your flames, cover your coals, and sleep safe. The sound moves slowly away down the lane. Ka-chin, ka-chin, growing fainter until it is lost in the dark and the street is silent again. Step out now into a small inner courtyard and look up, for though the streets of Edo are dark, the sky above them is not. There hangs the moon, and the moon was loved in this country, loved and watched and celebrated as in few places on earth. On the most beautiful full moon nights of the autumn, Families would set out little tables facing the moon, with offerings of round white dumplings and tall silver plumes of pampas grass, and simply sit and look and let the quiet beauty of it fill them. And when they looked up at the shadows on the moon's bright face, they did not see a man there, as we sometimes say we do. They saw a rabbit, a moon rabbit, standing on its hind legs, pounding rice into sweet cakes with a wooden mallet, there in the silver light. Look up at the moon yourself tonight, and you may just see him too. How strange and how wonderful a place this was, this sleeping city. For Edo, in these years, was almost certainly the largest city in all the world, greater than London, greater than Paris, the first city on earth, some say, to hold 1 million souls. And yet it ran so cleanly and so well. Fresh water ran to its wells through miles of buried wooden pipes, brought from rivers far away by one of the finest waterworks of the age. Almost nothing in it was wasted. Everything worn out was mended. Everything used was used again, in a great quiet circle of thrift that fed the city and the farms around it together. 1 million people in a city of wood and paper, lit by little lamps, kept by bells and watchmen, and tonight, nearly all of them asleep. The hours turn, marked by the far-off bells. The lookout watches from his tower. The watchman's clappers sound once more somewhere across the city and fall silent. The paper screens have gone dark. The lanterns are all hung up and snuffed. And the moon rabbit pounds his rice in the silver light over 1 million sleeping souls in the greatest city in the world. 300 years and more have passed since this night, the one we have been walking through together. The little wooden houses are long gone, burned or rebuilt, or swept away as the city grew into the vast modern one we know. The names of the soba seller and the bathhouse keeper and the family asleep on their tatami floor were never written down and are lost. And yet so much of that gentle evening world is still with us, even now, carried quietly down the years. The bath at the day's end, the bowl of warm noodles, the little parcels of rice and fish eaten the world over now that began on a dark Edo street corner. The folding away of the bed each morning, even the moon rabbit still pounding his rice on the autumn moon. And the night still comes to that city beneath all its modern lights, just as gently as it came then. The people of Edo are deep asleep now. The watchman, his round nearly done. The lookout in his tower, watching the quiet dark. The family on their tatami floor, beneath their padded quilts, in the last warm glow of the banked-down lamp. They do not know that we came to visit. They are only sleeping, as the whole world sleeps, as you, perhaps, are sleeping now. So let go of the last of it, whatever you are still holding. The gates are shut. The watch is kept. The great bells are counting down the quiet hours, and the moon is bright over the rooftops. There is nothing left to do, and there never was. Only to let the soft dark gather you in, gently, the way it gathered a sleeping city of 1 million souls 300 years ago, and carry you on toward the morning. Sleep well, and when you are ready to travel again, Nox Historia will be waiting. Good night. Good evening, and welcome to Nox Historia. Tonight, we travel to the island city of Tenochtitlan, the great city on the lake, at the heart of the world the Aztecs made. Settle in, let the day loosen its hold on you. Find the shape of the bed beneath you, the weight of the blanket, the small warmth your body has already made in the dark. There is nothing you need to do now, nowhere you need to be. Only here, only this, only the slow turning of a night 5 centuries gone. For it is roughly the year 1500, some 500 years before your own night. A generation, perhaps, before the ships of distant Spain will appear off a coast no one here has yet imagined. Tonight, none of that has happened. Tonight, the city stands whole and shining in the middle of its lake, one of the largest cities in all the world. And here is something most people never learn about it. It was cleaner, greener, and better ordered than almost any city then standing in Europe. Its streets were swept, its people bathed, its gardens floated on the water. The old story that this was some small or simple place is simply not true. And tonight we will walk it gently in the last blue light and see. You do not need to remember any of this, not a single name, not one number. Let the words move past you like water under a bridge you are only leaning on. If you drift off before the market closes, before the hearths are banked, before the stars come out over the lake, that is not a failure. That is exactly what this is for. This is a place to fall asleep. Let us begin. Dusk is settling over the valley now, and over the lake at its center, and over the city built upon the lake. From a little rise you might see the whole of it, a broad, shallow lake, silver going to pewter, and rising from the middle of it a city of white and pale stone, its low rooftops catching the last of the sun. They call it Tenochtitlan, the place of the stone and cactus, from the old founding story of an eagle seen upon a cactus ages before this evening. The Mexica people made it here. On islands they widened and joined with their own patient hands until the marsh became a metropolis. See how the light lies long and golden across the flat roofs. The tallest shapes at the city's heart are the temples and the palaces, painted and plastered, glowing faintly rose. Around them spread the districts where the people live, thousands upon thousands of them. Perhaps 200,000 souls in the city itself, more than lived in London or Rome or any city the visiting Spaniards would later know. And all of it afloat, or nearly so, on the still bright plate of the water. You do not need to hold the number, only the picture. A white city, a wide, calm lake, the day going soft and warm at its edges. Let us come down now, gently, toward the causeways, the long raised roads of packed earth and stone that reach from the shore out across the shallow water to the city gates. 3 of them, broad enough for many people to walk abreast, straight as drawn lines over the still surface. In the evening they fill with people coming home. Watch them come. Farmers with empty baskets, their day's produce sold. Porters, their loads lighter now. A woman with a sleeping child bound to her back in a folded cloth. They move without hurry, the way people move when the work is behind them and only supper lies ahead. Along the water beside the causeway, low, flat canoes glide home too, poled slowly through the calm, bringing in the last of the flowers, the last of the maize, sliding toward the little landings without a sound. The lake lies almost perfectly still, holding the pink of the sky, and the canoes seem to travel across the sky itself. There is a smell on the evening air here, wood smoke beginning to rise from 10,000 hearths, and cooking maize, and the green, wet smell of the gardens. The gardens are the wonder of this place. Out on the water lie the chinampas, long, narrow plots the people built by piling rich black mud from the lake bed onto woven mats of reeds, anchored with stakes, and in time, with the roots of willow trees planted at their corners. Floating gardens, we sometimes call them, though truly they are rooted now, fixed and fertile. On them grow maize and beans and squash, chilies, tomatoes, bright bunched flowers. So much food that a city of 200,000 can be fed from the surface of its own lake. Let that settle in you softly. A city that grew its supper on the water. Now we pass through the edge of the city and into its lanes, and the light is deepening toward that blue that comes just after sunset. The city is laid out in order, straight streets, and between them the calm canals, so that a household might travel by foot or by little canoe as it pleases. But we will keep to the dry lanes tonight, where the ground is swept and firm, and leave the still canals to hold the last of the light. The market is closing. We are near Tlatelolco now, the great marketplace at the northern end of the Twin City, and even now, at the day's end, it takes the breath. This was the largest market anywhere in that world. On a busy day, tens of thousands of people came here to trade. One of the Spaniards who saw it wrote, amazed, that it was larger and better ordered than the markets of his own great cities, and that a man might stand and watch and never see the like again.
See how they are packing away the day's goods now, unhurried, calling soft farewells across the emptying aisles. Here were sold things past all counting, maize and beans and salt and honey, cotton cloth in every color, sandals and rope and pottery, medicines and dyes, gold and feathers and turquoise, and cacao, the precious bean of the cocoa tree, ground and whisked into a dark, bitter, treasured drink, and used too as money, counted out bean by bean. From that bean, in time, will come the word your own age still uses, chocolate. And from these stalls, the word tomato, and the word chili, and the word avocado, Aztec words, carried across an ocean, still on your tongue this very night. The traders sweep and stack and cover their wares against the dew, and the great square slowly empties, and the quiet comes down over it like a soft cloth laid across a table. We turn away from the market and into the quieter lanes where the ordinary people live. The grand temples are behind us now, their painted heights already going dark against the sky. And around us instead are the homes, low, flat-roofed houses of adobe, of sun-dried mud brick, their walls washed pale, standing close along the swept and narrow ways. The lanes are hushed. A dog lies curled in a doorway. Somewhere a child laughs and is gently shushed. The blue of the sky is going to indigo overhead, and here and there a warm point of light shows in a doorway where a lamp has been lit. The air is cool now and smells of smoke and evening and turned earth. Everything is slowing. The city, for all its size, is settling toward its rest, house by house, lane by lane, the way a great flock of birds settles onto the water for the night. Let us step in through one such doorway, an ordinary family's home, nothing grand. We pass through a low opening into a small courtyard open to the darkening sky, with the rooms of the household set around it. This is how they live, not in one closed box of a house, but around a little open square of their own, a patch of the evening sky held for the family alone. In the corner grows a small tree. Against a wall stand water jars of red clay. A broom leans where it was set down, for these are people who sweep, morning and evening, and count a clean house among the plain good things of life. The courtyard is dim and warm. The last light has gone violet, and the first faint stars are pricking through. A woman crosses the little square with an unhurried step, and from somewhere within comes the low murmur of family voices. The sound a house makes when everyone is home and the day is done. You need do nothing but stand a moment in this courtyard, in the cool blue dark, and breathe. Inside, the hearth. Here is the true heart of the house. 3 stones set in a low ring on the floor, and between them a small fire of dry wood, tended and quiet. The flames are low and orange, and the light of them wavers gently on the pale walls and on the faces gathered near. There is no need for a great blaze, just enough to cook by, enough to hold back the cool of the night, enough to gather around. A clay lamp burns beside the hearth as well, a shallow dish of oil with a floating wick, its small flame steady in gold. In this soft double light, firelight and lamplight, the room is the color of warm honey. Shadows move slow and easy along the walls. A grandmother sits nearest the fire, wrapped in a woven blanket. A man leans against the wall with his eyes half closed. A child sits cross-legged, watching the flames the way children have watched flames since the very first fire was ever lit. The warmth reaches out and touches you too. Feel it on your hands, on your face. Let your shoulders come down. There is nowhere in all the world you need to be but here, by this small fire, on this quiet night, 500 years ago. Now the evening meal. It is plain and good, the same food that fed this whole shining city. Maize, first and always. See the woman lift the flat rounds of dough she has patted between her palms and lay them on a smooth clay griddle set over the coals. Tortillas, we call them by their later name, the warm bread of every table here. She turns them with quick, sure fingers, and they puff and brown and give off that good toasted smell that fills the little room. With them, beans, cooked slow and soft in an earthen pot at the fire's edge. Squash, a sauce of tomatoes and chilies ground together on a stone. Perhaps a little fish or fowl from the lake in the gardens. They eat with their hands, tearing the warm tortillas, dipping and folding, passing the pot. The grandmother served first out of long respect. There is quiet talk, and the small clink of clay, and the soft sounds of a family taking its supper together in the firelight. Simple food, eaten slowly, among people who love one another. Some good things do not change across 500 years. When the meal is done, the grinding begins for tomorrow. The oldest sound of the household, the one that starts before dawn and returns at dusk. The woman kneels before a shaped stone, a smooth slab called the metate, and with a stone roller she works the boiled maize back and forth into soft dough. It is slow, patient labor, done a little each evening so the morning will have bread. The sound of it is low and rhythmic and strangely soothing, stone upon stone. The sound this city made in 100,000 homes at once, every single evening of its life. And as she grinds, the grandmother by the fire begins, softly, to speak. She is telling the children a story, an old one, the kind grandmothers tell everywhere, of how the world was made and remade, of the sun and the moon, of the eagle that showed the people where to build their city on the water long ago. The children lean toward her, half in the firelight, half in the dark. You need not follow the words, only the music of them. An old voice, low and unhurried, telling a young one the shape of the world, while the fire burns down and the stone whispers and the night grows deep outside the door. Near the doorway of the house stands the small household shrine. Every home has one. A little clay figure or two, a dish for a few grains of maize, or a flower, or a curl of sweet-smelling smoke offered in thanks. These people saw the divine in the plain workings of the world. in the rain that watered the chinampas, in the maize that fed them, in the sun that rose and the fire that warmed them. They kept a careful count of days, too, a calendar of great cleverness, wheels of days turning within wheels, marking the seasons for planting and for feast. Tonight, the mother pauses at the shrine, sets down a single flower, murmurs a few soft words of thanks for the day that is closing, and turns back to her family. A small gesture, gently made, and then it is done. We know these things, the shrines, the calendar, the stories, the floating gardens, the great market, not from guesswork, but because they were written down and dug up and remembered. The people kept painted books, folded screens of bark paper bright with images, and after the Spanish came, native scribes and elders set down all they could recall of the old life, so that whole libraries of memory survive. Those who first saw the city wrote of its wonders in astonishment. And beneath the streets of modern Mexico City, for a great living city stands upon this very spot even now. The diggers still find the old stones, the old hearths, the old dishes, and so the sleeping city speaks again. You are not imagining this night. It truly was. Now it grows late in the little house. The fire has burned to a low red glow, banked carefully so a few coals will keep till dawn. The lamp is pinched out. In the warm dark, the family makes ready for sleep, not on high beds, but on mats of woven reed unrolled upon the floor, soft blankets of cotton and woven fiber drawn over them against the cool. The children are already heavy-eyed, folded down beside the grandmother. The grinding stone is silent now. The story is finished. One by one they lie down in the dark, and the small sounds of the house grow slower and further apart, and then still. Let us step back out, softly, into the courtyard, and let the family sleep. The night air is cool and clean, and when we look up now, oh, look up. The stars. Above the island city, above the still dark lake, the whole sky is thick and blazing with them. More stars than a modern night could ever show you, for there is no other light here to drown them out. Only 100,000 banked hearths glowing faint and low behind their walls, and above them the great unhurried wheel of heaven. These people watched this sky with care and love. They knew the wanderers among the stars, the risings that told the season, the slow procession of the nights. They laid their calendar against the sky and found it good. And now the same stars that turned above this sleeping city turn, a little changed, above your own roof tonight. The same light, only older, only farther on its way. The city sleeps beneath them. 200,000 people, breathing slow in the dark, on their reed mats, in their swept adobe houses, around their banked warm hearths, ringed by the still black mirror of the lake, in the blazing quiet of the stars. A whole world, alive and at rest, in the last calm years before the great change came. Hold it gently a moment, then let even that go soft. For this city would change in the years after this night, as all things in all cities do. The ships would come, a new age would arrive, and upon these very islands would rise, in time, one of the largest cities on the earth today, Mexico City, roaring and bright, its millions asleep this night atop the sleeping stones of Tenochtitlan. But that is another story, for another night, and it does not touch this one. Tonight the white city stands whole in its lake. Tonight the market was vast, and the gardens floated green, and the stars came out, and a grandmother told a story by the fire, and a family lay down in peace. That is enough. That is everything.
The people of the island city are asleep now, as you, perhaps, are sleeping now. The fires banked low, the lake gone dark and still, the great sky wheeling over all of it, keeping its slow, ancient count of the nights. So let go of the last of it. Let go of the causeways and the canoes, the market in the maze, the stone and the flower at the little shrine. You do not need to carry any of it. It has kept itself for 500 years without your help, and it will keep a little longer while you rest. Sleep well, and when you are ready to travel again, Nox Historia will be waiting. Good night.